the 20 years of history here, we've seen a dramatic shift in the dairy industry in the North Bosque. You've seen mom and pop small dairies move away and the large dairies move in, and the number of cows, in the region is up dramatically from its low point a couple of census data points ago. We're every bit as high in dairy cows as of 2022 as we were in 2002. We did like this. And last census count was like 77,000 dairy cows.
And what was it in 2002?
78. Four counties, Bosque, Erath, Hamilton, and McLennan, 64,000 of the 77 are Erath. 3 of the 5 testing points between Stephenville and here that show improvement in phosphorus. They still, though, have some issues, and we want to examine the link between the phosphorus and the chlorophyll A.
We spent a lot of time in 21 with TCQ and all the stakeholders going through the data, looking at the performances, the TMDL readings, and there's certainly been improvement, but I think we felt, and the TCQ ultimately concluded that it needed to continue, that the measurements still needed to be made.
We're open to examining some permitting modifications, not necessarily the move from individual to general necessarily, but we're open to those if they don't impact water quality, if we can better understand the river, because we still have a significant chlorophyll A issue, and as long as we're monitoring the growth in that head count of dairy cows.
Over the course of the last 25 to 30 years, that program has been a success. In fact, it's really a success story if you look at it. Other than the fact that most of the dairies moved from our neck of the woods out to West Texas. But over the course of that period, the monitors, the monitoring stations, and the watershed have shown that it has worked. The dairies and the dairymen in that area are committed to fulfilling the requirements of the TMDL that was put in place in 2001. But because we've come this far and because we're where we are, it is still incredibly hard for our dairies and dairymen to get general permitting when they make an adjustment to their dairy, or if they want to change anything about their operation. They're subject to all of the requirements under individual permitting, which is different from general permitting. It costs a lot more money and a lot more time.
I think that we're always willing and prepared to sit down and make sure that there's not some overburdensome regulation in place. I think, this is about my background, JB. Like, my dad's a cattle rancher. I grew up in the agriculture industry. I care about this industry. I don't think anybody around this table wants there to be some red tape or government overregulation. So we're always ready and willing to come to the table and make sure that if there's something unnecessary or some legislation that is not needed, then let's look at that, as long as it doesn't compromise the water quality in Waco.
As I mentioned, we've had a huge fall off of dairies there over the years, and dairy businesses continue to grow in the Panhandle. And part of the reason why is some of this regulatory extension that's on them versus other parts of the state. Really what we're asking to do is take them from an individual permit to a general permit, which is what the rest of the state has for all operations. We're not talking about changing the TMDL or lowering the regulation standards that are under that, which are more stringent than other parts of the state. And with that, our producers, though, still suffer a much higher cost for permitting and much longer process to get anything done. So to give you a quick example, if you were to buy a piece of property next to your farm, and or if you had a piece of property that you chose to change a product that you were going to plant on that farm, that is a major amendment to your permit. You'd have to go back through with us with all dairies basically use a third-party specialist environmental consultant to do this. If you have that cost, you have to resubmit it, and you have to wait the timeline for the TCQ process of evaluating these permits, which is much longer. So you can have a time period of up to a year or even over before you could access, use that land, or make that change, even though we all know it could be better for the watershed.
As the bill has become more of a discussion point, the author, Dwayne Burns, Representative Burns, and I've had frank conversations about potential amendments that he would be willing to consider, and we submitted to him and Texas Dairymen Association a list of potential options for amendments, and we just haven't gotten to the place of consensus. We can think about water quality, we can think that, but you have to also think about the life of that North Bosque. It's changing. And if you just took a straight line projection of what the number of dairy cows that are going to be there at the next census point in 5 years, we could be pushing 80, 90, maybe even 100,000 cows. So it doesn't
That's the
feel
trend.
like the time to roll back regulations, to roll back training of dairies, to roll back phosphorus limits.